Great to see you. This is our last week before Thanksgiving break. So wonderful week. We're always excited about that. So I did make it to the movies. If you get a chance, Red One. That's a winner. It's a new holiday classic for me, and I got to see that one. Dwayne The Rock Johnson is Santa's security chief, and Santa gets kidnapped. So I enjoyed that so much. Got me in the Christmas spirit just watching my first Christmas movie of the year, and it's a new one. It's good. Red One in theaters now. There's a lot of movies right now that I want to see. Next week, like Wicked is out, Bonhoeffer, Gladiator 2. I'm not going to have time. It's a good thing I got a week off because I'm going to need extra movie time for Thanksgiving week here. Oh, a lot of fun stuff. But anyway, well, let's take a look at our cybersecurity for the week. Let's go to our grade screen as usual. Best place to go see where you're at. Let's see. We did intrusion prevention. So, boy, we don't have much semester left. So this week we've got access management, which we do this weekend. But don't wait till the weekend. This weekend you're going to be on break, right? Holiday break starts after Friday school, so get done early. And then we just got two things when we come back and semester final, because we only got 3 weeks when we get back. When we get back from Christmas, we've got 3 weeks. And the third week is finals week. So that's going to be pretty quick afterwards. So we're going to look at access management today and get ready for a Thanksgiving break. Access management. Access control systems. Not the first time we've said that. Each network user and host device must be identified and categorized in certain ways for an administrator to control access to an organization's applications, data, files, and services. So this is done using an access control system, which is the set of technical controls governing how subjects may interact with resources. They define subjects as users, devices, software processes, anything else that can request and be granted access to some resource. In cybersecurity, the basis of access control is usually an access control list, or ACL. We've mentioned that, but we'll get into it more this week. IAAA. Access control systems are usually described in terms of 4 main processes: identification, authentication, authorization, and accounting, or IAAA. This is the system used to describe the framework for controlling access to computer resources, controlling usage, and implementing procedures. These methods are considered the foundation for effective network management and security. So identification associates a particular user with an action performed on a network or system. In some cases, this is where the billing and delivery addresses must match to prevent use of fraudulent payment methods. Although I got to say, if someone else wants to pay my bill for me, I don't mind if they act like they're me and pay it. Authentication protects by. Authentication validates a user's identity by asking for specific information, like a username or password, or security questions that you have to set up. Identification and authentication are the first vital steps in access control. It must be met before the user goes any further. Very common. We're used to seeing passwords all the time. So, authorization allows users to perform certain actions like accessing, editing, and saving files. Authentication allows users into a system where they can access files and make changes. The authorization process determines where the user has the right to go once they're in the network. Users might include administrators, power users, standard users. Administrators or admins, they run the show. They decide who can access resources on the network. Power users are typically employees who have a lot of access to a lot of features and information. Standard users are usually just business partners or vendors whose access is limited to certain files and information that's specifically shared with them. Accounting protects by accounting measures the overall access of users by tracking the amount of information that they access, the resources they consume, the number of hours they spend on a session. Everyone's actions are visible in a network, so this holds users accountable for their actions. If something goes wrong or sensitive data is leaked, management administration can track the issue to specific users and timeframes. Well, who was in that database at this time? They can look and see who all was accessing it when this problem happened. Basic authorization policy. So there's two important functions in authorization. The process of ensuring that only authorized rights are exercised and the process of determining those rights. The more privileges an administrator gives to users, the higher the chances that a privilege will be misused. Authorization policies help reduce this risk by limiting the allocation of privileges as far as possible. So, implicit deny. So, access controls like firewalls are typically founded on the principle of implicit deny. Let's see how that's defined. Unless there's any rule specifying that access should be granted, any request for access is denied. That's like the default setting. If you try to access something, it says, is there some rule saying that they can access that? Because otherwise the answer is just going to be no. Anything you try to access is no, unless there's a rule that says, okay, they can access that. That's implicit deny. So this means unless a rule specifying that access should be granted, any request for access is denied. A firewall filters access using a set of rules. So these rules are processed in order from top to bottom. If a request does not fit any of the rules, it's handled by the last rule, which is no, refuse the request. That's always at the bottom of the list. Okay, then there's the least privilege method. The idea behind least privilege is that a user should be granted rights necessary to perform the job, but no more. What do they need to do the job? Well, they need to access this and this, so that's all we'll give them access to. They don't need to see these other things. It doesn't help them do their job, so that's just leaving us vulnerable. Single sign-on, or SSO, means that users only need to authenticate to a system once to get access to all those resources your account's been granted rights to. So the advantage of single sign-on is so that users do not have to manage multiple user accounts and passwords. The disadvantage is that compromising the account will compromise multiple services. Like every time I access anything, I only have to sign onto my computer once, and I can access everything on my computer that I've been granted access to. I don't have to sign into every application I open up. The two terms, authentication and authorization, sound similar, but they're different terms of cybersecurity. Authentication validates a user's identity to grant them access to a system network. Authorization is the process of giving the privileges to the user to access specific resources like files, databases, sensitive information. In simple terms, authorization evaluates a user's ability to access the system and to what extent. All right, page 3. Authentication. Once an account is securely created, authentication verifies that only the account holder is able to use an account and that the system may only be used by account holders. So authentication is performed when the account holder supplies the correct credentials. That's evidence attesting to one's right to credit or authority. If these credentials match the credentials stored in the system, then the account is authenticated. Several technologies are used for defining credentials. So they're classified using the following factors. Could be something you know. This is usually the logon, comprised of a username and a password. Right? The username is not typically a secret, but the password should be a secret. Example, something you know, like a password or multiple personal identification number. Something you have. So this type of authentication can be more costly because each user must be issued some kind of token, and each terminal may need a reader device to process the token. So this person, when they log in, they got to pull out this little device, and it generates a token for them, and they have to type in that token, and it has to match what the computer's looking for. So something you have would be like a smart card or a token. something you are. That's usually some kind of biometric recognition system. So many types of biometric information can be recorded, like your fingerprint or retina in your eye, like something you are, like a fingerprint. Something you do. Rather than scan a body part, a template is created by analyzing the behavior, like writing your signature. Something you do. If someone else tried to make your signature, they wouldn't write it exactly the same way you write it, and it would recognize that and kick it out. Or it could be somewhere you are. This could be like a geographic location, like are you in the building? That helps authenticate you should be allowed on the network. Using the device's location service and the GPS or even an IP address, location-based authentication is not used as a primary authentication, but can be used as an access control feature. For example, if the users enter the correct credentials at a VPN gateway, that's when you're virtual private network, which means you're not in the building, but the IP address shows them to be in a different country than you expected, access controls might be applied to restrict the access. Oh, they had the right credentials, but this says this is someone logging in from Nigeria. So somewhere you are, such as using a device with location detection enabled. All right, page 4. Multi-factor authentication. So a strong authentication product should combine the use of more than one type of something you know, something you have, or something you are. This is called multi-factor authentication. Single-factor authentication systems can be easily compromised because the password might be written down and lost, or a smart key could be stolen. So strong authentication requires 2 or 3 types: two-factor, multi-factor. We're getting very familiar with two-factor authentication because there's lots of apps you have now that will send a text to your phone or some code that you have to type in. That's two-factor. So here's some examples. Oh, let's see. Password, multi-factor authentication, and then you're logged in. Examples. Factor 1 might be something you know, like a password, and factor 2 might be something you have, like a smart card. Or it could be something you know, like a password, and then like a fingerprint's required also. Or something you know, like a password, and somewhere you are, like a mobile device that has location services that can tell that you're where we expect you to be at. Page 5. Knowledge check, as they've been doing very regularly on page 5. Match each term with its correct definition. All right, so here's a chance to figure out, do we know what we're talking about before we take the actual quiz? Accounting, authorization, authentication, identification, least privilege, and SSO. All right, so let's look at this first one. Validates a user's identity by asking for specific information, such as a unique username and a password or fingerprint. What do you think? I'm going to open up the chat and let you think about it. So we just read all this. Which one do you think would be validating a user's identity? Counting, authorization, authentication, identification, least privilege, or SSO. Identification cases. Yeah, you'd think so, because talk about identity, so surely it's identification, right? No, it's not. But it's validating the identity. So let's try authorization. Nope, it's not authorization. Okay, it's about to stump me on this. Would it be a single sign-on or authenticating that it's the right person? Yes, it is authentication. It is authentic, making sure they're authentic. Users should be granted rights necessary to perform their job and no more. Oh, that one we got, right? We got this one. I'm only going to allow you access to just the files you need to do your job. That is going to be, you know it. It's got to be least privilege, right? Just what you need and no more. Okay, this allows users to perform certain actions like accessing, editing, and saving files. See, we also got measures the overall access users by tracking the amount of information they access. Oh, this one we know for sure right off. It tracks the amount of information they access and what they consume, the number of hours they spend. That's the accounting, right? We're keeping track of that, the accounting. But you think this is SSO right here? Allow users to perform certain actions associated specifically with action performance in the network. Oh, no, that's not gonna be SSO. This is gonna be SSO, right? Users only need to authenticate to a system once, so single sign-on, SSO, single sign-on. So that should be a single sign-on. Yep, that one's SSO. So now we got authorization and identification. Allows users to perform certain actions like accessing, editing, or saving, associated with a particular user with an action performed on a network. Let's see. Allows users to perform certain actions. I would think that would be authorization, right? And it is. Identification associates a particular user, identifies that particular user with what happened on there. So, all right, that's a nice review before you get to our questions. Which access control methods use to track a specific issue or attract an issue to specific users? Use granted rights necessary to perform the job, but no more. We just looked at that one. All right, 5 questions. Which of the following is an example of something you are or something you know? All right, good stuff there. All right, access management, really kind of rehashing a lot of stuff we've talked about in the past, just different details to it. So pretty straightforward, pretty simple. This is our last week before Thanksgiving, guys. So if I don't see you again, this is a B-Day Friday, so we only have class on Wednesday. If you got any questions or anything you need help with, otherwise, have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you afterwards for 3 weeks. That's all we have after Thanksgiving. So, all right, we'll see you guys. That's all we got.